Welcome to the RISC Foundation interview series. I'm Donna Perry. The RISC Foundation will now be bringing you in-depth interviews with leaders in business and government and policymakers throughout the state. We hope you enjoy the interview series and support the RISC Foundation.
One of the things that I'm actually really excited about is the fact that people in Rhode Island are talking about education. Education has always been important to families in Rhode Island and to businesses in Rhode Island who understand why this is such a critical issue for our state. And now we're having very public conversations and discussing it and talking about what we need to do. And I'm really looking forward to continuing that conversation and moving us forward together as a state. Whether or not we get this grant, we are going to continue with our goals, with our implementation. It's just going to look a little bit different.
I know that there was a lot of difficulty over the course of that application process to get the unions on board, to get the cooperation. How key do you believe it is that it strengthened our application once they get on board?
Oh, I think it's critical, and it's important to make sure, I want everyone to know that we think that it's so important to have the engagement of our teachers and their union leadership in this plan, not just because it made us more competitive, which it did, and that's obviously great, but also because with their engagement and with their support and involvement, we're going to be more successful in implementation. We cannot bring about the kind of change that we want to see in our educational system without the involvement of our teachers. They are the heart and soul of our education system.
Let's talk about the earthquake that erupted, also known as the Central Falls School District. Mm-hmm. Without going back over the whole saga, Commissioner, the agreement was, after all was said and done, hammered out in May. First, take us through, many people said, well, how could it be by hiring back the entire staff that the dramatic change that you're seeking in support of Superintendent Gallo could be reached?
Well, first of all, I would say that it's important to remember that the reason that the teachers in Central Falls High School were terminated by the Board of Trustees is not because there was a decision made about their individual performance. It was about the need to implement the turnaround plan, which was the model that the superintendent felt she needed to implement when she didn't get agreement around what they needed for the other model called transformation. But once they were able to reach that agreement, then she reconsidered and they moved back to the transformation model. So I know it's kind of complicated, but it's important to know that was not about individual teacher performance, and it was always important to the superintendent to engage the teachers if they were ready and willing to make the major changes that needed to be made. The leadership needs the ability to make decisions, make changes, react, self-correct, mid-course. You just need to be able to make flexible decisions about what needs to be done in order to help children learn. And to the extent that they get bogged down in overly rigid sort of bureaucratic processes and so forth, it just makes it almost impossible to make the kind of significant changes that need to be made.
What is the one toughest obstacle, for instance, that in traditional contracts?
Setting the schedule. It seems like such a simple thing, but setting a schedule at a school can be an incredibly cumbersome thing to do. And adjusting a schedule, if you discover that you need to do something differently, can become a major ordeal if it involves a lot of agreements and that type of thing. And so the leadership in Central Falls now has the ability to make decisions about what that school day should look like, and I think that's incredibly important.